Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at one of the latest cases to be released from Corsair, and this is their baby of the bunch, the Corsair 300R. It's their entry-level case. I've had a look online and it's going to be available under £60 at some retailers. I've seen it available in the UK for around 58 quid, which puts it, you know, pretty much smack bang up against the likes of the Bitfenix Shinobi, so we should be expecting good things from this. But let's crack on straight away with the review. Now, if I turn it round this way, and I'm going to zoom you in a little bit as well so that you get to see the front of the case. Here we go. Right, so to start with, we'll talk about the front panel. Power button and reset button at the top. The power button actually does light up with a white LED, which I'll show you later on, and then there's a hard drive activity light, which is also white. Reset button, like I said before, we've got headphone and microphone there, and then we've got a pair of USB 3 connectors. On the inside it does have an internal header. Crikey, I sounded like I was Australian or New Zealand then. You can see, sorry, as I was zooming out, you can see that it looks like the front is bolted on, but it's not. The front does have kind of, the best way I can explain it is it does look a tiny bit like it's meant to be brushed alley, but it's plastic, and I think that's what those screws are meant to imitate, the fact that it might have a screwed on metal front panel, but it's not. Now, surprisingly, as we come down, this may seem a little bit too in depth for you, but I'm just going to kind of zoom you right in on that mesh. Now, this is something, bearing in mind the price of the case, when we get really kind of into the details, this mesh isn't flat. You can see it's curved at the edges and then rolled around. Now, not being funny, this is a sign that they've put some thought into this and it's not just been made super cheap. It may sound like a really kind of in-depth look just because the mesh has got rolled edges, but you'd be amazed how many companies with a 60 quid case would have just had a flat bit of mesh there and it been, do you know what I mean, not really thought about. All of these kind of little details do add to the manufacturing cost, and it's not thin mesh either, there's a good quality mesh there. And if we scroll down a little bit further, you can see the Corsair badge that's in a recess as well. If I zoom you back out a bit, you can see more of the screws at the bottom. Now, like I said, it is a really kind of in-depth look when we start talking about the way that the mesh is rolled, but it's something that I did want to point out. Now, I'm going to pull the front panel off. I need to turn the camera around so I can do this. I'm going to pull the front panel off. So I need to get it on the edge of the bench so I can get my hand underneath to pull it off, and then the front panel comes off completely. Now, you've got the mesh on the inside, which has got like a dust filter mesh in there as well, but there's also some air vents on the side of the case to help airflow, and there's even dust filters behind those air vents on the side as well, which is a really kind of nice touch. The side ones aren't so easy to be able to get the mesh out because you have to pull from the side, and there's a side plate. I mean, that again is just a sign of the Corsair quality, because when I first looked at this I was expecting them to be stuck in, but the fact that they can come out, and I did say they don't come out very easy, I actually meant to say they come out really easy. It's the front bit that is slightly more difficult to get out. You will have to hoover that. That's got no way of just being removed. I was confusing the two, but it's there anyway. Right, when we take the front panel off the case, it exposes, and I'm going to zoom the camera in again now. Now that's a 140mm fan there, but if we have a look just underneath, I'm going to stand it on the front of the case so that you can see better. I'm pretty sure that's going to have helped. Yeah. Right, so we've got a 140mm fan here. There's the ability to fit, with the outside screw there and there and the outside screw there and there, a second 140mm fan should you want to. But also there's the ability to fit two 120mm fans as well. I'll show on the inside it's not really water cooling compatible, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more depth. But nonetheless, that's you've got the choice of fitting two 140s or 220s, or one of each, however you want to go about it. And at the front of the case you can also see it does go into the straight onto the hard drive bay on the inside, but there's plenty of these cutouts and drill holes on the front of the case to allow the fan to be able to push the air in, which is also a nice touch. On the front total there are 3 optical bays, and that's pretty much it for the front of the case. What I'm going to do now is shut the camera off quickly, rejig, and then show you the top panel. Right then guys, on to the roof panel. Now when I first saw this I did actually get quite excited, because you can see here that we've got mounts for 120 and 140mm fans. And the 120 fans did look like they'd been sat further over to this side of the case, so I was instantly thinking H100. But I'm just going to have to move the case and get this in the right way for you. Right, now if you have a look down inside, you can see that we've got the white memory sticks there and then these 120 fan mounts. Now I can confirm if you try and fit the H100 it will hit your RAM. There's just not enough room. If it had been a little bit further over, might have been able to have been done. But I think Corsair have probably pushed it over as far as they possibly could. So the thing is, with this case, H100 not compatible. Doesn't matter what motherboard you've got. If you just want to bolt it in the roof, it's not going to fit. But then again, we are talking about a £60 case and a £90 cooler, so you're probably not going to want to mix the two anyway. But I just wanted to make that very clear before the comments start. Now, if I move this back over again, yet more talk about the mesh. I'm going to move it up a little bit actually, because you can see all the way around this edge, it's yet again it's a folded mesh. And it actually does add a bit of strength to it as well. The edges are really strong. It will flex in the middle a bit, but then again, it is, you know, I mean, it is mesh. But it is a very, very, for the price, it's quite a well-made case. There's a lot of nice little touches to it. Yeah, it's pretty good. One thing I will say is with the roof, there is plenty of room there to be able to fit a fan, because a fan's 25mm, so you've not got to worry about that. So you can fit a fan. One thing I will say though is we've got H80 fitted in here at the moment. If you have the H80 fitted, you cannot use these fan slots at all because the H80 sits too close to the roof. You can use this one on the other side should you wish. But anyway, what we're going to do now is switch the camera off, rejig again, and we'll take a look at the sides and then we'll finally get the door off. Right then peeps, we'll start on the back panel. Back panel is completely plain, just a normal powder coated panel, easily comes off. And the clips, although they are slide clips, they're not the clips with pins that can break. These are actually, if you can see, I'm not sure whether the camera's going to pick it up, but they're actually folded clips, which is nice. They're all one piece. As you can see, I have used the Corsair individually braided cables, which you'll see when we get to the other side, and it's quite a nice look. Now, room for cables in the back is 20mm exactly. You can see that there is actually a really, really large CPU cutout here. It pretty much covers the whole of the back of the ATX motherboard at the top. And it's massive. You're not going to have any problems getting heat sinks on and off, and that's an AMD mount there as well, which are always quite deep. The fact that it comes right down to the middle screw is awesome. There's been cases I've reviewed in the past that have not had this, and they've cost twice as much. That's pretty good. From the back you can see, or you get your first glimpse, that the cutouts that go through to the other side of the case don't have grommets. But as far as going through to the other side of the case is concerned, there's one at the bottom, 3 down the side. There's one at the top for your 8-pin CPU power, and then there's another large one up here for obviously to pass the cables through for the front panel headers. And to be perfectly honest with you, you could, even if you wanted to, pass your cables up that way for your optical bay. And that would be easier to come that way if you went over the top. If the cables were long enough that you were using, it'd be a little bit tidier. You can see there's a large area missing here, but we'll cover that when we get on the inside. This is pretty much all we can do for this. So what I'm going to do now is turn the camera off, stick the side panel back on, and we'll have a look at the other side. Right then, I'll get this lined up a little bit better on the camera. Should really have done it before I started filming, but hey, this is one of my videos. Right, on the side panel, two quite basic hexagon stamped grills. Will fit 220mm fans, or you can use 140s on there as well. It is quite a basic design, there's no dust filtering or anything there, and it is just in the side of the door panel. The door panel has got a little bit of flex to it, but I have felt a lot worse in the past. A lot worse in the past. For what it is, it's not too bad. Now, this is where we get our first look at the internals. Hopefully we're going to have enough light today, because I've moved the lights loads. Now, the rig that we've got in here, yes, it is only a Micro ATX motherboard, but what I've got in here is pretty much a selection of, where it's a basic case, I wanted to keep the what's in the case quite basic as well. So we've got a hard drive in the bottom, using one of the 4 toolless hard drive cages, and they literally do just clip in and out. It's nice and simple. It does look like there's a hard drive bay missing. It doesn't come with this hard drive bay or anything to go in here. The idea is this is left open for larger graphics cards. But I've got to admit, it does feel like there's something missing here, like there's something they didn't send in the box, but that's not the case. You can fit massive graphics cards in here. I mean, this thing literally will swallow a 300mm ruler. So it's not going to have any problems fitting any graphics card in one of the top, say, 3 slots of your motherboard. You'll be able to get anything in there, do you know what I mean? 6990, 590, you know what I mean? Any big graphics cards. We've just got a small one in here at the moment, which is the 7770, just to give you do you know what I mean, an idea of the hardware that you could fit in here. Considering it is a £60 case, even the H80 I'd say is overcool, but the reason why I use the H80 is to show you that when fitted, no matter which way round you put it, it will blank off the top fan mount at the back. You can obviously use the one slightly further in front, but if you want to use this, you won't be able to use that fan up there. So yeah, we've got the H80 in there, and it's on a Llano board, and it was just to kind of show you. Power supply that we've put in it is a AX650, pretty overkill for this rig, but the reason why I used this and this kit was just to show you, if you were to buy some, you know, nicer bits like these braided cables and match it up with a white RAM and stuff like that, that you can make yourself a good looking system. Now, because of the 140mm fan in the front, there is a good airflow coming in the case, and it has made a difference to the graphics card. And where it's a 140 as well, it's really not that noisy. To be perfectly honest with you, the H80 is probably the loudest thing in this case, other than you know what I mean, we can hear the hard drive, but the front fan is pretty quiet. Now, where we have got the ability to fit 2 fans in the front and 2 fans in the roof, depending on what CPU cooler you use, there is a good amount of airflow there, and then you can still add even more airflow in the side of the case to blow over. So for a £60 case, there's a lot of options there. So we can fit big graphics cards, plenty of plenty of fans if you want to use air cooling. You can get an HD14 in this case should you want to. And it fits fine because it does go in there. We've had it in there and tested it. Like I said, the only thing that you can't fit in it is the H100, and that's because there's not enough room between the roof of the case to be able to get the fans and the radiator in. If you fitted the fans outside, that would be different, but it looks silly then, and I really don't think anyone's going to be wanting to do that, you know. And also, buying a £60 case and a £90 cooler is not going to mix. But I just wanted to make that very clear from the beginning that it natively does not fit. We've got, if I slide the back of the case round a little bit, in the back of the case, you've got room for 120mm fan exhaust. There's some cable grommet, like water cooling pass-through holes in the back that you have to snap out. They're non-replaceable. And there's a set of mesh here, obviously, for extra graphics card exhaust, because we do get those fins on the edge of the fans. The power supply mount in the bottom can be mounted either way, and there's 2 sets of screw holes there. A lot of power supplies now come with 2 sets of screw holes anyway, so it doesn't really make a difference. But this has got the 2 sets of screw holes in the case to match the 2 sets of screw holes in the power supply. So I think that's about it, guys, really. The only thing, like I said, that we really need to mention when we get back to this side is the fact that there's no cable grommet holes. But other than that, that's pretty much it. I'm kind of staring in now to, you know, trying to find something that I've missed. And I think, other than saying that the optical bay clips are toolless, I think we've covered everything. So, what do you think of the rig? Obviously, like I said, it's a cheap case, or a budget case, I should say. But we have put some relatively high-end hardware in there, considering the price of the case, that is. But I think it's time for us to have a conclusion now, so that we can have a bit of a chat about what I think of the case, and then get it all wrapped up. Right then, guys, time for the conclusion on the 300R. Now, what award am I going to give it? I'm going to say right from the get-go that I'm going to give it the silver award and the value for money. I do think it was very, very close to getting a gold, in all honesty, but obviously now that I do get quite a lot of support from Corsair, I'm always conscious about the kind of people nitpicking and thinking that the award's been bought. So if anything now, Corsair have got to work a little bit harder. I've spoken to them about this and they're really not bothered about it, because they just want me to review it as I see it. So I may be being a little bit harsh with this one, but I'm going to give it a silver, and I'm going to give it a value for money because it's only £58. So hopefully I've kind of traded off one and then given it a better one with another. But let me kind of explain why. Now, I honestly see a lot of retailers picking this up for their budget gaming systems, because for 50 odd quid, it really does look the part. And kind of comparing it with other cases around that kind of price bracket, it instantly made me look at the BitPhoenix Shinobi, which I am a massive fan of. I still sit beside the 6-hour BitPhoenix Mod Challenge case, because I've never got round to building myself another one yet. So I still sit next to my own personal Shinobi, which should say a lot considering the amount of cases that pass through this place. Whether it says that I like it, or whether it says that I'm just too bloody lazy to rebuild it, is 2 completely different questions. But the 300R is actually built better. The quality is better on this than directly comparing it with the Shinobi. Even the Shinobi with the window, I would say I almost prefer this one more. The side panel on this, let's put it this way, if this had had a window in the side, I probably would have given it a gold award. And it's probably that would have been like the final thing, because it does pretty much almost tick all the boxes. There's a few little niggles with it. Some people are going to say it's noisy. I would say I understand why it is, because with the mesh in the roof and the fact that the side panel has just got the kind of where you can mount the fans there, you can hear what's in the rig. But even the quietest of systems out there, you still do need to tune the parts on the inside of your rig. So if you even take a case that says it's silent and you stick a noisy graphics card in, doesn't matter what happens, it may make that graphics card a little bit quieter, but you're still going to hear a noisy graphics card. So the fact this has a lot of fan mounts and loads of ventilation, it's like it's quite open. It's almost like having your motherboard out on the side of the rig. So if you're expecting to build a quiet rig, you can do, but you just need to make sure that you tie in everything else with it. So for argument's sake, if you wanted to build yourself a quiet rig that's still got a reasonable amount of airflow, you would obviously want to add a 140mm fan in the roof. Make sure that you've got a silent CPU fan, and then also make sure that your graphics card's not going to be screaming with torture all the time, whether it's hot or dusty or whatever else. Talking about adding fans, you can obviously add a second 140 in the front if you want, and there's slots for 2 in the roof. So you've got those 2 options that you can add 140mm fans, but you can also add 120 fans if you've already got them in the front and in the roof as well. There's mounts for both. As I've stated before, or earlier on I should say, is that this doesn't support the H100 at all. The only way you could kind of get away with it would be is if you had the radiator on the inside and then you put the fans on the outside, but that would just look wrong. And let's face it, why would you put, for argument's sake, a £90 cooler in a £60 case? You really should have your budget being spent the other way around, that you're spending £90 on a case and £60 on a cooler. I know I've got the H80 in here, but it's just to show you that it can be done. But also, if you do use the H80, it's quite critical that you then cannot mount any fans in the back portion of the case. You can only use the front options in the roof mesh. But it's very well built. It's really well laid out as well, in all honesty. Everything kind of clicks into the right places. There's enough room to put stuff. The hard drive cages are a bit strange because there are slots in the front of the case for another cage above, and it's just like it's kind of missing, or they've left it out at the last minute. But I understand why. It's so that it can support really long graphics cards. But you can see that at some point there was another bit of cage here for the rest of the hard drives, and they've left it out for whatever reason. If they had left that in, it could have made an awesome little server case, for argument's sake. So it's a strange one that Corsair have decided to leave that out and just lock it down to 4, but they must have had their reasons for it, even if I can't think of them. I know we've used, like I keep saying, we've used quite expensive kit in this, but it's just to show you what can be done. It looks awesome with the individually white braided cables, and we've tied it in with the low profile white Vengeance RAM as well, although that's not that badly priced. I think that's about, for an 8 gig kit, I think that's about 40 odd, 50 quid now. And it's low profile, white, fits under the NHD14 fine. All lovely, lovely. Although we've only used a short graphics card in here, although the parts that we've got in this rig are kind of a hint of something that we're going to be doing a little bit later on. That's something that I'm still working on, because I built the 300R when it first arrived at the beginning of last week, and I've actually been testing this rig in it ever since, and it has grown on me, I've got to admit. Like I said, really the only thing I don't like about it is the fan grills on the side of the case, and I've never ever liked these, but that's like a proper personal preference. If you really don't like them, or the dust starts to annoy you, it's quite simple. You just get yourself some like a dust filter, screw it in the other side, and it will help dampen the noise. It'll also stop the dust going in there. Or you can go the old-fashioned way and just put a bit of like smoked acrylic or something on the other side, stick it onto the back, job done. And you can cover that up, and it'll also help quieten it down a little bit as well. You could do the same for the roof if you really, really wanted to, and you were trying to, if you were anally trying to quieten it down. A lot of people online, when I first mentioned this on the YouTube channel, if you can hear squeaking, it's my chair. A lot of people did ask me, can I please make special effort to talk about water cooling with this case? Because when I did the Shinobi build before, I went back and did like modded options and stuff like that with it. With the front of this case, it's a bit difficult, to be perfectly honest with you, because you would have to cut a massive chunk out the front. Now, I know I've done that with the Shinobi. I will say it's possible, very kind of similar things, but it's quite a bit more difficult as well, because it wouldn't just be a case of bolting a rad grill in there. You would, you'd have to do some fabrication and stuff, because the rad grills aren't really going to line up. So as a project case, I'm still out. I'm not really made my mind up on that side of things yet. But as far as the rest of it's concerned, as a buy it, build it, use it case, it's bloody brilliant. It really is. The hard drive cage on this, for example, is much better than the Shinobi stuff, because the Shinobi hard drives bolted straight into the case, and it was metal on metal. With these, although there's not as many of them, you're obviously going to have a little bit of damping there, because you've got the rubber grommets in the side of the mounts, and it keeps at least to a certain extent, keeps the hard drive off of the bare metal. And the hard drive that's in this is quite notorious, because it's a spin point F1. It's quite notorious for clinking and clacking when it first starts up, and you don't notice it too much in this case. It doesn't silence it completely as it has done in others, but it's definitely not as bad as I've heard in the past. So the long and short of it is, it's not quite perfect, Maybe with a side panel window and some cable routing grommets or something like that, it could have got a little bit further and maybe eked out a gold award. But it's got a very, very solid silver, and it's definitely worth every penny of the 58 quid that they want to charge you for it at the retailers, which is why I've given it a value for money award as well. And like I said, keep your eyeballs peeled, because I see a lot of retailers now picking this up for their lower end kind of gaming builds and stuff like this. And to be perfectly honest with you, it's absolutely bloody perfect for it. Yeah, if I was going to be building a kind of like cheap rig, say for argument's sake 2500k, someone wasn't really massively fussed about aesthetics, wanted a cool and relatively quiet rig, I wouldn't think twice about using this, to be perfectly honest with you. It's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn good. Obviously, as always with stuff that I review, could make some changes, but obviously that would drive the price up. But yeah, I do like it. Very solid silver, value for money. I'm not going to keep going around in circles because I'm starting to be aware that I am. So Corsair 300R. If you've not seen one of my videos before, make sure you subscribe. But also for all the regulars out there, make sure you comment. And also go and take a look at the TTL Facebook page. It's getting quite manic on there at the moment. We could do with some sane people if possible to keep all the crazy people calm, if that's all right. But anyway, this is Tiny Tom Logan with the Corsair 300R. Let's just want a silver and a value for money award. Out.